all get along. Find out when you die, the keys to heaven can't be bought. Still don't know what love is, but we sure know what it's not. Sometimes you got to get along down the road. We got a long, long way to go. Scared to live, scared to die. We ain't perfect, but we try. Get along while we can. Always give up the upper hand. Hang along.
Stuff right there.
Dance, call me mom, buy a boat, drink a beer, sing a song, make a friend. Can't we all get along?
Coffee instead of a beer.
Not till noon.
Exactly. Happy Friday.
I've done 2 songs I want to go listen to, but that'll have to wait till later. Good morning. Maximize my screen here. While our audience builds, I'm excited about today. We're just gonna have fun. We're just gonna banter back and forth. And I've got a bunch of Craigisms that I think are gonna come out today, and we can openly debate them because I'm probably full of shit in some of these things. No, just makes sense. Okay. Must be a quiet Friday. Well, what everybody's doing today is getting ready for I think we have 40 closings scheduled for today. That's a lot of closings in one day. So that means we're gonna have a very busy week, and we have 50 something closings set for Monday. So that means we'll say it again for the staff. We have 90 closings in the next 2 days, which means a lot of things. Kat, are you muted? I'm not hearing you say anything.
I was not going to interrupt you just yet.
There you go, perfect.
Good morning.
Oh, much better sound than yesterday.
90 closings.
90 closings is awesome.
That's outstanding.
And so I just want to say my new thing is, it was funny, I was talking to a customer last night, and it was a pretty open conversation. Turns out he works for one of the guys in my business group, and he's buying a house in Mirror Bay. So we had a connection. And we were talking about construction and all the delays going on, and he's fully aware of it, the spreadsheet I showed you all on Tuesday. And I said, my motto has become, during the pandemic, just be kind. And we started ranting and talking about different things. I was talking about this stupid friggin' attorney who's going after us for a $25,000 deposit. And it just drives me crazy. And be kind. You know, an agent got notified 9 minutes before a deadline, and there's no presupposition that an agent's supposed to sit there and wait for emails to come in so they can answer. You know, you're not a slave to your phone, and the buyer has some responsibility in it. And for those of you who don't know, we went under contract for a house for $1.2 million. We had a 45-day loan approval period. Okay, this is Contract Friday, so we're going to start about contract. 45-day loan approval period. The loan approval period expired on a Saturday. Now, there's nothing wrong with this because the contract addresses if it falls on a Saturday, it automatically gets extended to the next business day. Saturday, Sunday, or legal holiday gets extended to the next business day at 5 p.m. Nowhere else in the contract does it say 5 p.m. except for if that clause happens. Now, this is a very savvy buyer, contractually. He's a chief operating officer for Park Square Homes, so he knows his contracts very well. We've got text and emails from our agent to him reminding him that his deadline was 5 o'clock on Monday, right? We have text and emails that we sent to him reminding him that this happened. He sends a text of an email like, I can't believe my phone was charging. I don't have email notifications on my phone because it would never stop, right? So we get an email at 4:51 p.m. Don't check it till almost 6 o'clock. Like that's kind of dinner time, right? Check your email after dinner. Oh, here's an extension. Forward it to the listing agent who was unkind and said, gotcha, you were supposed to cancel by 5, you didn't, you're losing your deposit. So that started a whole shitstorm of arguments back and forth. And then another contract issue, the listing agent put the house back on the market. Now there's a legal precedence in that. Kat, you can back me up on this, I think, because my lawyer said it. When the seller said the buyer breached due to failure to cancel during the loan approval period, that did not cancel the contract. The contract is in full force and effect until the closing date. The buyer just lost his financing approval, okay? So we have a contractual right to buy that house. And the seller said we had a contractual right to buy the house, and then they went around our back and put it back on the market. So Noel, my lawyer, said that's totally inexcusable. They took away rights. So they're saying we breached the contract. We're saying they breached the contract.
No, they breached.
We both breached. We breached. There's no question we breached. Technically, we missed the 5 o'clock deadline. We 100% did, but they weren't kind. And karma's a bitch, and sometime you're gonna figure that out. So anyway, I talked about that situation and how being kind makes a difference. So we're gonna go. So I had to report that to the E&O company, and just so you know why we have E&O insurance, our deductible is $5,000. So my exposure in this entire opportunity is $5,000. The deposit's $25,000. But I want you to think this through. Is the deposit $25,000 for the seller?
Mm-mm.
No, because the listing agreement says we get 50% of all retained deposits.
Right.
And then the contract says that if we get 50% of the retained deposit as a listing broker, we have to share 50% of it with the selling broker. So the 25 grand becomes 12,500 to the seller, 6,250 to us, and 6,250 to Keller Williams. So now this fight becomes less important. So now I offered him 5 grand to go away because that was the most I was gonna have to pay anyway. And they don't like that idea. So they want to go to mediation or to court. To which I said, okay, I'll report it to E&O then. So now our hands are clean. We got a $5,000 exposure, not the end of the world. And my attorney suggested that I go to mediation without an attorney. Just so I show up, like I don't care, which I don't. And they're gonna pay their attorney to show up. So they're gonna start spending money. And then I'm gonna make a very kind case about how there's no precedence in the law that an agent is supposed to be on call for their email 24/7, every minute of every day. And my attorney also said, who is a trial attorney, that judges hate stuff like this. Why are you wasting my time with this stupid thing? You're talking about an hour penalty and you're what, $25,000 for that breach, and you breach too? Get out of my courtroom. That's what they're saying.
She's exactly right. It's a total waste of time. It's irritating, or send you straight to mediation and get it worked out there. Shouldn't even go to mediation anyway. They should just take it and go their separate ways.
Yes.
Nobody wants to be stuck in a hearing like that. It's ridiculous.
So I was gathering documents on this file to report to the insurer, and I asked the agent to send me some correspondence. They did, as far as emails, and we couldn't find a lot of emails, but we knew there's a lot of notification going on. And it came to me that, oh, they were text messages. Now, so this became a problem, and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just calling it out, because what I said in my email last night was, it doesn't matter if your contracts are perfect unless there's a problem. And the problem is we don't know when there's going to be a problem. So when you have a problem, so what's the problem with text messages? When you delete them, what happens to them? They're gone. They're gone. So the E in email is considered evidence. I've got a whole bunch of stuff on my pad here that are just things that we're going to talk about today. So the E in email is evidence, right? And Kat, you and I were talking last night. If you have to subpoena phone records, talk about that for a minute.
Sure. Phone records are done through a business record request. Our business record custodian will do a subpoena dicus tecum, and that subpoena will go to your phone carrier. And it's very easy to get those subpoenas for about $250 for that subpoena, and to have those records produced. They will go after it. And the worst thing about text messaging is, number one, if you're going back and forth over a contract, over negotiations, you shouldn't be doing it on text message to begin with. I'm just going to put my 10 cents out here because lawyers hate text messages for a number of reasons. Their admissions, we hate it because they're going to take that and they're going to use it against you, and they're going to get it into a court proceeding under the business record exception. It's one of the easiest things to get in admission and through evidence through a hearing, be it criminal or be it civil. It's very easy to get them in that way. It's one of the biggest exceptions out there on the rules of evidence. Another thing is you don't have any confidentiality privileges attached to those text messages. It's out there for the world to see. Unlike our emails, and if you'll look at the bottom of our email disclosures, it clearly says this is not a contract unless a contract is binding, signed by all parties. So if you're going to get into negotiations with people, forget about texting, go straight to the email, stick with your contract, but go straight to your emails and document it that way. Don't text. That's one of my pet peeves. I absolutely hate text messaging. And I'll tell you, 90% of the lawyers hate it too for that very reason.
Okay, so let's talk about a couple things that don't matter, but they do when they're necessary. So a lot of agents don't like, not a lot. I've heard some agents say they don't like using our at c21be.com account. Guys, okay, first of all, we pay for all of your accounts because we have to be secure as a brokerage because we have the responsibility. And since we all have this domain at c21be.com, it's not a power trip, but we control that domain. So we have to, in our Cardus agreement, have certain language about Cardus in our email signature. Boom. Now, how on earth would I can't get you guys to check your email on a regular basis. How can I make sure you put this all in your signature and don't change it? It could never happen. So think about when you're doing business with an agent who's using their Gmail account or their Yahoo account, what permissions do they have to do that? What protections do they have? Nothing. So I'm not fooling, I was going to say a bad word. I'm not fooling around. This is serious stuff. It's not a problem until it is. And when it is a problem, you'll be damn glad you're working for a brokerage company that knows what the hell they're doing, right? Use your at c21be.com account for all of your business correspondence. I'm not being mean, I'm just being forceful. That's what you do for protection because it's not a problem until it is. And when it is, you'll be glad you did. And I don't know when it will be. I think I told you last week, 2 weeks ago now, AIXA had this seller who went batshit crazy. You know, the buyer asked for a 1-day extension and he flipped his lid and accused her of being the worst agent on the planet and us being the worst company. And the guy's done 4 or 5 transactions with us, right? And then he brought out he's a lawyer and he's a big shot and he's going to shred us and listed all these things he's going to do. And I put him in his place and the deal closed on Friday and he paid us and we're good. We're not good. He's an asshole, but that could have been really ugly. And if that little turn of event happens and you don't have your ducks in a row, there's a problem there. So text versus email, and I get it. Okay, just because the other agent's texting you doesn't mean, okay, first of all, I don't even know, does the contract say that text messages are formal verification or proof of, I don't think it does. I'm gonna look at it.
It doesn't. And on that point, I have a little handout that I put together. I can share my screen and show you the case law that's very specific about that.
Okay. I didn't look at that yet, so go ahead. And
yeah, no worries.
But I'm going to pull up Dotloop anyway, just because I want to. And because I'm in it 4 times a day. So you can take over the screen.
Okay.
Oh, you did.
Whoops, did I?
Well,
all right.
Yep.
What happened here? 1 second.
Boom, 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 boom. Templates.
Give me 1 second. Trying to get this to come up, and as usual. Let me see.
It's in my email. Want me to put it from there?
Yes, that would be great. Yes.
Then unshare your screen.
Okay. And it's just a link. You click it.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to here. I'm going to share my screen. And you just tell me when you want me to advance.
Sure, sure. Okay, this is it. This is a great article from the Real Estate Client Communications E&O office that comes out of Washington. Basically, it's telling us don't use text messages. Don't send snapshots of text messages with questions. And this should flip to the next page. You click on the arrow, flip to the next page. There we go. And for damn sure, do not text back and forth terms of a contract. Counter offers, none of it. Not because we're trying to be difficult, we're trying to protect you. In my opinion, and my peeps have heard me say this before, texting to me and most lawyers is lazy, irresponsible, don't do it. We don't want to have to represent you in court. We don't have to fight for you in court. And the reason why we know these things is not because we got our law degree on Google. We actually did graduate and try cases. We actually know what we're doing. Emails are wonderful. And if you flip to the next page, you'll see, there we go. Uniform Electronic Transaction Act. This is where it all begins and ends. And these 2 pages, and we can always give this to you later, gives you the rules of UETA and where this came from and why it's so important, because your electronic transmissions in the email that Craig has always made sure we have at the bottom of our email addresses when we sign out, that's protected. That's confidential. Whereas with text messages, there's nowhere in there as a privilege. But there's case law out there that's come out of Massachusetts, even though that's not binding on us just yet. It did come out of their Massachusetts Supreme Court, where they used the basis of text messaging in a court case to go against a real estate agent and their buyer. So they lost. And it's one of the few cases that are out there that give us guidance on how courts are thinking about this. So we really want to make sure we don't do any text messaging of any kind when it comes to negotiations. You're going to get agents from other agencies that are going to be like the Wild Wild West and do whatever they want. That doesn't mean we do that, because then we fall down the ladder. We need to keep our aspirations and our goals and our practices up here. Don't allow other sloppy, ill-informed agents, and I'm not being harsh here, I'm being real, because this is exactly the way a judge is going to talk to you. Don't follow their lead. Always do what you need to do and be professional. Get it in an email. Best of all, if it's a counteroffer or something like that, use the counteroffer form. There's no point in putting all this in text messaging back and forth. It's one big headache after another. You'll see at the bottom here, number 2, include a disclaimer at the bottom of your email. We do that. That's in the bottom of all our emails. And a lot of folks probably haven't had a chance to read it or don't understand it, but this is right here to protect us. You'll see this on every one of our signed emails at the bottom. This is only for negotiations, and it's not binding on the parties unless all contract is signed by all parties. That was put in there probably by our lawyers to protect us in the very beginning, and it's not to be overlooked. Don't take it out of your emails. If you've already got it formatted in there, leave it alone. Avoiding an E&O claim. There's other courts out there that are now saying that it's negligence on the part of the real estate agent, realtor, to do the text messaging and go back and forth like that. And your E&O claim might get denied, which means you're going to be on the hook for all that money. So we're not ranting and raving to be, driving you crazy and be smart Alex here. It's serious. It costs money and it hurts your reputation. And that's my 2 cents.
Let me get clear on this. So
Yes.
This article is basically, I'm just reading while you're talking, basically says a court may construe an email or a text message as a contract.
Yeah, some states will do that. Yes, that's the new movement out there.
Unless you have a disclaimer that says this is not. So let's go here.
Correct.
Let's go new email.
And you have it in there at the very bottom.
Oh, you can't even see that it's here, but let me go to an email from one of our people. So here, Otis just sent me. So if I go down here, there it is.
Exactly.
So it's hidden in the signature, but there it is. If you're a real estate agent or broker, if you're signing or buying or selling real estate, please note that emails are for information or negotiation purposes only. No agreement to buy or sell real estate will be binding on the parties unless and until a contract is signed by all parties. It's almost verbatim to what's in that article. And then this email is covered by the Electronic Communications Privacy Act of 18 USC and is legally privileged. This email is intended only for the addressee, is confidential, and may contain personal information. Any dissemination or use of this email by anyone other than the intended recipient is strictly prohibited. If you are not a named recipient or are prohibited from any further viewing of this email or any attachments from making any use of the email or attachments. If you believe you have received the email. Okay, yeah, that's standard. So
A lot of agents don't
so
have
this
that.
is what Cardis made us put this in here because
Well, Cardis did you a huge favor.
yeah, they really did. And that was a requirement. I didn't know how to make that happen, but Ben did. So that's now a part of our at c2onbe.com. Little things like that matters when it matters. It's not important now. Go put your license on 100% shop and do what you do and hope nothing goes wrong. Anyway, there's my little song and dance on that one today. Where was I? If contractual terms are sent to you by a text message, transfer that content into an email and have the person who originated that content confirm it and send it to you with their electronic signature in the body of the email. Add a standard disclaimer to the bottom of your email that states any information within the email cannot be construed or used as a binding contract. When in doubt, contact the CRES claim proven, whatever, legal advisory hotline to have them review your electronic document prior to sending it. So this is a E&O company lawyer sending a note to their members. Okay, that's pretty good evidence, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
again, we're not trying to be smug or smart, and we're not saying don't text because we were born old and we don't like electronics. It's got nothing to do with it. It's a new age litigation, and they're always looking for ways to reach into your pocket.
Yep. Hi, Christine, welcome. Yes, we'll send it out. Do you mind if I share that, Kat?
Not at all.
Okay, let's go to the contract now and look at notifications. I'm not sure where it is, and it's one of these 14 pages. You guys reading this along with me?
Yes.
Conveyance, closing docs. Is it under standards? I think it is.
Oh.
Okay, Craig, think. It says notification. Well, let's go back to the contract itself. It's the contract. I know it says notification to the agent is deemed as good as notification to the client. So wherever that section is where the other language will be. So the buyer notifying us, their agent, that they're canceling is not notifying the seller. So what the buyer could have done is copied the buyer's agent because he's definitely in correspondence. What the buyer could have done is sent in a text message, hey, I just sent you a very important email sheet, please check it right away. Could have made a telephone call to their agent saying, hey, I just sent you a very important email, it's time sensitive, get on it. But none of those three things happen, which is going to share the blame or the responsibility between, this is me talking to my lawyers and the counseling, between the buyer and us. So now we're talking about a $12,000 deposit to the seller, $6,000 to the broker. And now the buyer is going to take half of that responsibility. So it becomes even less important. So 3 more questions here. Good question, Mike. Does that paragraph also apply to notes sent via .loop? What do you think about that, Kathleen?
Well, I think the electronic sign messages, if it went through .loop to the other side, and with the contract or with any notations to the contract, then .loop helps us for timestamps and things like that.
Yeah, I think she's talking about when you send a note through .loop. I would say no.
No, we're
The
not going
form
to
here
get that.
says integration.
Right.
Where's that paragraph?
Well, and they're not a part of our loop. They're not going to necessarily get that notification. They're not going to be on our team.
Right. That's why you don't want to add your customers to your team.
Oh, God, no.
Integration modification. This contract contains the full and complete understanding and agreement of buyer and seller with respect to the transaction contemplated by this contract, and no prior agreements or representation shall be binding on buyer or seller unless included in this contract. No modification to or change in the contract shall be valid or binding upon buyer or seller unless in writing and executed by the parties intended to be bound by it. Now, so this is where lawyers make a lot of money, because the article you just read said that some courts had admitted emails and text messages as contractual. But this contract says, no, it's not going to be contractual unless it's signed by all parties, right? And
Correct.
then the lawyer goes and plans a case and it gets in front of the Supreme Court, who then overturns a ruling or makes a new ruling. And a lot of people make a lot of money doing that.
Well, and that decision is not binding on us because it's an outside precedent in another state in Massachusetts. Generally, the rule is the four corners of the contract is what's fully modified, unless it's otherwise modified with an addendum. It's fully integrated. I think Florida judges would push back on wanting to include an email or whatever as far as part of the contract, but they will consider it as part of terms of negotiations. But if it's email signed, if there's an email signature by all parties, including for the terms and so forth, then that's when the Florida courts are going to jump in and say, well, this is part of the contract. Tough.
Thank you, Joe. Angelique said, communicate with your customers via .loop. All notes stay with the file and it's considered an email and notification. Because when you put a note, .loop sends an email to you that there's a note in the file and then the note stays in the file, right? I mean, we really have to get better at this. I had to go into some loops yesterday in Mirror Bay, and literally there were, one file had 6 loops open. We opened a loop. We opened a loop 2 weeks ago, forgot about it, opened another loop. Then that contract died, opened another loop. And there's just a better way. We'll get Angelique to do more training on that with us. Deborah, what does but not between the agents mean?
The email messages may not be between agents.
If they're on your team, you can communicate through the messenger and it will be documented to the file. Right, because an email is sent when the message is sent. Cool. Joe said letter O is what I wanted. So neither this contract or any notice of it shall be recorded in any public records. The contract shall be binding on and inured to the benefit of the parties and the respective heirs or sellers. Whenever context permits, singular shall include plural and one gender shall include all. Notice and delivery given by or to the attorney or broker, including such broker's real estate licensee representing any party, shall be as effective as if given by or to that party. All notices must be in writing and may be made by mail, personal delivery, or electronic, including PDF media. A facsimile or electronic PDF copy of this contract and any signatures herein shall be considered for all purposes as an original. This contract may be executed by use of electronic signatures as determined by Florida's Electronic Signature Act and other laws. So I didn't see text messaging. Is that considered electronic media, or is that, would that be different? You're muted, Kathleen.
Text messaging is electronic. It's considered electronic, and it can be construed, is what that court case says, as part of the contract. And that's what made that case so much an anomaly, because we're so used to thinking of it within the four corners of contract. So again, I wouldn't even have text messaging going on when it comes to contracts.
But let's be real. Agents use text messaging all the time. And you know what's happened is emails become so overwhelming that people revert to text, right? Because I turn the notifications of my emails off, but I can't turn my text notifications off. So now text has become overwhelming. I can't tell you how many pages of text messages I have.
Yeah, they should forward it into an email. Yeah, just forward it into an email. It's really easy. You just click it, you hold it, click it, forward it into an email, and it goes to your email, and you get away from text messaging. It's just a horrible habit to have when it comes to contracts. I don't understand it. I don't know why.
There's pages and pages and pages. These are all text messages that I can't get rid of.
Right.
I'm afraid to get rid of them. But I guess you can archive them. Can't you archive them or something?
Yes, you can.
If you
And
archive
you can forward them all to your email. Just get into the habit of forwarding them all to your email. You hold it down. There'll be a more button that comes up. Click more. Forward it all into an email.
I don't have I'm an Android user, but
That'd be a good class to teach. Forwarding,
I
text
can
messages.
copy and then paste into an email. That's what I would do.
Sure you can.
So I
Yeah.
could do it right there, forward. And then pick, yep, there you go. So guys, that's just a practice I want you to think about, not trying to rule your world or anything, but it's not important until it is. So that's a good one to play with a little bit. I want to have another discussion now. Kathleen, I think you'll get a kick out of this one. I wrote down 2 words: email etiquette. The pollution that goes on with email is ridiculous. There are 2 ways to reply to an email. One is reply, the other is reply all, and the third one is delete. All right. And this might be some opinion, but you know, it's really nice and friendly. The title company girls will send me an email and I'll reply all, thank you very much, that's great. And then they'll write back, you're welcome. Oh, maybe that's an opinion. I shouldn't be worried about it. But that was 3 emails to get 1 message across. Personally, you don't need to say thank you when I write you back. I don't know, Kathleen, how do you feel about that?
You know, I think it depends on what the subject matter is, but if you can try to keep it to a minimum, because we get bombarded with so many, I understand people are getting just over information to the point where they don't even want to look at their emails because they feel like they can't get through them all.
Right. Yeah, right. After this meeting, I'm going to go and there'll be 35 messages, and I will broad sweep delete or unsubscribe from as many as I can before I get to the ones that I actually want to take action on. And it'll be ridiculous when I get there. So be conscious of, and it's really troublesome when I'll send an email to 3 people and the person I was asking the question of will reply back to me. Well, I put the other 2 people on the email string because I wanted them to have the answer. So since you didn't reply all, I need to now go forward your email to those other people. So you're creating more work for everybody. So especially with you guys as working with buyers and sellers, email buyer, Mr. Buyer and Mrs. Buyer, or Mr., Mrs., whatever it is, both parties. So many breakdowns happen because we are dealing with one party, not the other. And so you and the wife are getting along great, making all these decisions, and she's not communicating with her husband. And then you're getting can't say words like that. You're getting yourself in trouble because you're not communicating clearly. And would you agree with me, Kathleen, that communication is probably the most important thing in any negotiation?
It's the beginning and the end of what we do as human beings, as what we do in negotiations, as what we do when the first time we meet a buyer, first time we meet a seller. It's all about communication and being clear and being cautious with that communication, both in written communications as well as verbal. And it takes 3 seconds just to set aside the time when you're doing a contract or you're doing an email. Think about the person on the other side, how they're going to receive this message. Just be nice, be polite. If the other person on the other side is a complete jerk, don't succumb to that. Just rise above. Because in the end, it's all about making sure what is done for that client is at the very best representation. And in the end, everybody's going to be happy. And people are going to forget down the road all the little huffing and puffing that went on. But if you allow yourself to engage in that and get caught up in all that anger, you've lost control. And there's no room for emotions in real estate. This is all analytical. And the highest compliment somebody can pay you is saying that that person is highly analytical and wants to see everything before they make a decision. That's a compliment because that means they care.
That's good. Okay, what else about email? So reply all, be conscious of replying all, including the proper people in the messages. These are just little tiny things, but that aren't important until they are. I mean, it's not embarrassing, but I wish we had better I wish we looked more professional in our correspondence to the insurance agency, right? Because I had to go find text messages and get text messages copied to emails and then shoot PDFs of those so I could put them in the things and all that type of stuff. So that was one. Okay, I'm gonna just deviate on a couple little things here. I had an interview with Op City yesterday, so I'm going to share my screen in a second. Training. I just want to show you some of the things that are going on here. But I need to share my screen. You know, Obsidy is really less than 10% of our business, but I'm kind of honored that they care so much about us, because every 2 weeks or so, Donnie calls me and says, hey, what's going on? Let's look at your business, see what's happening. I said, okay. So here we go. I thought this was a fun one. I think I'll show this one first, though. No, not this one first. All right, so here we go. Here's an image. This is the number of referrals we've been getting. Look at this, guys. So this is August of last year. This is 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. August this year, they sent us 150 referrals. Now, I want you to think about this. If you're not an Opcity user, this is not a referral like an email from Zillow or Homes.com. This is a person sending out a text message to 5 people, and whoever answers it first gets a warm transfer of a consumer on the other line that got semi pre-qualified and said, yes, I would like to speak to a real estate agent. That's better than a lead, right? Okay. They sent us 150 last month, more than 150 the month before, 172. Look at these numbers compared to last year. 112, under 100, 93. So this is a huge increase. I just want you to see, I'm not putting hype out. You can see the hot sheets come out. 16 sales yesterday, 11 the day before. I'm going from memory, so it might not be right. But look at all these. That's just cool. And then this one is prices. So these are price ranges. And this is under 150, the red. So we do get some crap from them. This is 150 to 300. This is, sorry, my bar's in my way. I'm sorry, this is 2017. This is all one, I'm sorry, it's 150 to 300 price range. This is 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. Look at the rise in business, guys, of inquiries on 150 to $300,000 homes. Now we can see 300 to $500,000 homes. And it's less, but look at this month, this year. We've had more referrals of 300 to 500. Oh, I'm sorry, this is closings. I'm not reading the titles right. This is number of closings we've been doing. So last year, Opcity closings, 4, 5. Well, let me just be fully transparent here. In 2018, we made a decision to give all listing leads to the listing agent. And if they don't answer it, send it to Opcity. They'll scrub it, nurture it, and give it back to us. So we did that in 2018. And the yellow or orange, whatever color that is, those were our leads that they nurtured, and sent back to us. So we closed 5 in January, 3 in February, 2, 5, 2, 4. So that was ours. And then the blue are Opcity. So we paid a 20% referral on the business they gave us of ours. And we paid a 30 or 35% referral on the blue business. So in 2018, we did a lot more closings because our stuff was mixed in with their stuff. And then look at this orange one in April. We stopped giving them our stuff in March, but we still have closings going on into 2019 and 2020. How could that be? Because the customers are being nurtured that are still in their database, which is why it's important for you to perform your follow-up diligently for long periods of time, because their lives change, right? I was hot to put some wood paneling on my ceiling on my patio. I mean, it's all I thought about for like a week. I had contractors out, I got bids, I had all kinds of stuff. It is so far down my list right now of things to do, but I still am going to do it. Guess who's followed up with me since I had 2 contractors come out to give me a bid? None. I am a ready, willing, and able consumer to spend a couple grand to decorate my ceiling, and nobody's followed up with me. But you know what else? They're also damn busy. They got work until December. So they're not hot on it. And that's kind of what happens to us, or the belief of what happens. Oh, they must be too busy to follow up with me. Interesting, right? So our closings are way higher in 2020 than they were in 2019, just to show you. That was closing. Here's 4 prices, I'm sorry. So this is 300 to 500,000, 2017, 2018, 2019. Look at the price increases of referrals in the higher $300,000 to $500,000 price range. So you never know what you're going to get. And then the last one is, this is 500 to $1 million. So not much, more than last year, but this is 500 to $1 million from Opcity. And I was talking to the Opcity guy, and he says, you know, that the reason that is, and that this sounds really arrogant, but the wealthier people already have a real estate agent. So they're not going online looking, they're talking to their agent. So what does that mean? You better stay in touch with your customers, because if they're not, they're going to get in touch with you. This is a little problematic. 3 months ago, our click rate was 8.4%. He chastised me. 2 months ago it was 8.7%. So we're moving in the right direction. And this month it was 9.5%. This needs to be in the 40% range. And the problem is, just like we were talking about the handyman, you guys are getting your own business now. So you're not really acting quick to get this business. And Opcity doesn't care, because they've got so many agents on the platform. They're going to give it to someone somewhere. But for you, I would say amass every opportunity you can get. And I don't think we'll show much of this one, but the machine needs to restart or something. It's very slow these days.
Give it some coffee.
Right. Release rate. Release rate is when you get a lead and you say it's no good. Now, it's interesting to me how somebody releases half of their leads, somebody releases all of it. So this person says all of these leads suck. So a consumer went online, put in accurate contact information, was followed up by a live person in Opcity's concierge department who talked on the telephone, answered questions like, are you looking to buy or rent? Have you been pre-qualified with a mortgage company yet? Would you like to speak to an agent? And they said yes. So this person said 100% of my leads, all 42 of them, are crap. Give them away to somebody else. Do you think there might be some lack of communication happening somewhere? There's no way 100% of the leads out of 42, 12, 40. I found an agent yesterday who had 137 referrals in the last 30 days. He clicked on 4 and won 1. That blows my mind. But a lot of you are playing the Opcity game, because there's 160 of you on the platform. I think it's 160. 170 of you are on the platform. And some of you have not completed training, which is a problem. He also told me yesterday that if you were on the platform in 2018 and you got disengaged in a later point, it's going to be really, really hard for you to re-engage, because the algorithm has already tagged you as a duck who's not going to follow up. So it's not going to want to give you opportunities. So he said the only thing you can do to get back in its good graces, look at this, this is Mando machine, right? The only thing you can do to get back in their good graces is start taking rental leads, lower your price range criteria, and expand your market area. And it will start giving you stuff. And if you play nicely and report, it's going to recognize you as re-engaging, and then it will send you more. So I'm just telling you what I was told. I don't like it, but it makes sense. Oh, and if you know you're not playing the game right now, snooze yourself. Go into your app, platform, and snooze it. This way it stops counting you. So if you were active in 2018 and you snoozed yourself and you want to get back in 2020, you unsnooze yourself and you're good. It didn't penalize you for not answering. He also said, I'm reading and talking the same thing. Agents can adjust their settings to only get leads that they're interested in working. Yeah, you can. You say, I only want $1 million leads, but you saw there's only like one, and there's like 400 agents that only want $1 million leads. So you're gonna get very few opportunities if you cherry pick. That's it. What else was I gonna say? I distract myself.
I'm how is it more than 100% release rate? I'm a little confused about that.
Oh, that's because some leads are a buyer and a seller.
Ah, okay.
I
Okay.
asked a question.
Thank you. Like,
Jessica.
I'm missing something here.
Jessica gave me a good example there. She was working a deal and there was a text message from the seller's agent extending the loan approval period. Guys, this is just what we're talking about.
Oh, that's insane.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's good for us because we could use it and say we relied on it, but the contract is going to say no. So
Right.
there we go in front of a judge to say, Judge, is this
Right.
true? The contract says it has to be in writing to be
Right.
counted, but the text message from the listing agent, because it says notification from the agent is deemed as good as notification from the client. So you see all the stuff that goes on here?
Yeah.
It's got hair.
No. Now you got to forward that into an email over into an addendum that it actually extends the period.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. When you get one, even if you reply, if you accept it late, it's better to accept it than just ignore it. Because the winning click times on these things, guys, are seconds. They're not minutes. So if you missed it and 2 minutes go by, just accept it or try to claim it anyway, because the algorithm will see you're engaging and counts it as a click. But if you don't click, it's going to ping you as a bad person for not even giving a crap to answer. So this is, once again, it's a machine versus man making decisions for us. So I'm not saying I like it, but it is what it is.
Sure.
If you're going to play the game, you got to know the rules. There's my stop sharing. All right.
Especially contracts.
All right. Let's talk about not being attached to the outcome. Probably the most important thing that an agent, most important attitude that an agent can have. So 2 parts on this. One is the listing agent, one is a buyer's agent. Should you get a big initial earnest money deposit on an as-is contract? I would say no, I wouldn't care about that. Why? Because the as-is contract can cancel for any reason whatsoever within the inspection period. So when does a contract of an as-is contract really become more important?
After the inspection period. So get the
Day
big
after
deposit.
the inspection period.
Yeah.
So let me give you 2 examples right now. My neighbor right there across the street was Chris Martin. She worked for us for a long time. She passed away and her husband passed away very young. It's tragic. Her cousin is a real estate agent who listed the house. And I told her the house needed repairs. I can see when I walk to the mailbox, the left side of the house stucco is all plastered blistery. You can see it. It's evident. I told her about it. She put the house on the market. It went under contract in 1 day. Guess what happened to the contract? They canceled after the inspection was done. Why? Because they realized, oh shit, look at all the work. If this house is in this kind of condition now, what are we going to find later? Let's walk from this one, honey. Right?
Yep.
My neighbor on this side is for sale. His wife died. You don't want to live on my street. His wife died, and they died. I'm the only one living in the circle around me right now. In Lily. His house, Ralph's 88 years old, big, 4,500 square foot, 2-story, beautiful house. But he lives in Vermont. It's a second home. He never comes here. So his agent sold him the house. It was Jennifer Zales. Jennifer Zales had a caretaker assigned to his house who works for her for the 4 years he's owned it. So she listed with him again. And I called him because I have my other boat at his dock right now. And we talked for a while, and I took a picture of the side of his house where he's got these cracks coming down his windows on 3 separate places on this house. And I said, you really need to get that fixed. And then I'm walking through his yard a lot because I've been working on that boat, and I'm passing the AC platform, which is covered in mold. He's got a little step-up ladder thing that goes to the electric box, and it's covered in mold. It just irks me that we don't, and this Jennifer Zales, who's a great agent, she doesn't have the horsepower to stand up to the guy and say, this needs to happen. Hell, if I were her, I would do it myself. Just give them the bill. Just send my pressure washer out and clean this stuff up.
Right.
Now, she did stage and did a lot of that stuff, but here's what's going to happen. Mark my words. Buyer's going to get an inspection. It's probably going to be an as-is contract. Their inspector's going to walk around the house and see the evident cracks, and you can take a quarter and slide in between them and say, this needs to be investigated. Then because it's an as-is contract, the buyer is going to have to get an estimate of what that costs, not the seller, right? And then they're going to say, oh, this is a big deal. It's probably a $5,000 or $6,000 job by the time you crack all the stucco off and remask it and restucco it and then repaint it to match, because I paint the whole wall of the house is never going to match. And then that won't match because the house has been 4 years old, the paint's faded, and everything grows and becomes a bigger problem. So from one little decision starts a whole problem, potential problem, right? And that's what we're talking about. So it's not, nothing's wrong until it becomes an issue. So we don't know. So why do I rant on the concept of certified pre-loved homes? Find out the title, find out the thing. I did a boat tour a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about disclosing that if I'm a buyer's agent, I'm selling a house in a neighborhood I'm familiar with, and I know that, you know, the house is 45 years old, and it's got, when they built it, it had a 3-inch cast iron sewer pipe. Well, what happens to cast iron when it's buried in wet ground for 45 years? It rusts. And what happens to cast iron when people's shit gets flushed down the toilet for 45 years to go into a sewer? It clogs up in here. So what you do when you know you're buying a problematic situation is you hire a plumber with a scope camera, and they send the camera through the pipe and it takes pictures, and it will identify, because what happens also is tree roots are in your yard. And over 45 years, those roots get strong and they will crush that pipe. So the camera will hit a bump, it'll see a dip, and it will identify there's a problem. And then here's the real problem, is that sewer line, it's easy to replace in the yard, but then it goes under the slab and wires off to different places for the toilets and the drains, right? Because it's a sewer line. So how do you replace it under the slab? You get a concrete saw. Well, you rip up the flooring, the carpet, the tile, or the wood. You rip it up, pretty much wasted. You take a concrete saw and you hope you know where you're cutting, and you cut through, and then you jackhammer out that, and then you relay new pipe in, and then you bring in concrete and you float the floors. Problem is, the drains are under your cabinets. So what else do you need? You got to remove the cabinets. Hopefully you can reinstall them. So that becomes about a $40,000, depending on the size of the house, about a $40,000 expense, right? So should a buyer invest the money in getting an old house's sewer line tested so they know what they're buying? Do you as an agent have the courage to blow your own sale by tipping a buyer off that could happen to them? What did I start this conversation with? Not being attached to the outcome, right? Really, Dick said there's a company that can repair it without digging up the floors here in Sun City. I hope that's true.
There's some companies that are relining those pipes too with PVC. We have an addendum, an inspection addendum specifically for that too, because Morgan & Morgan in their infinite wisdom is suing us now if we don't have our scope inspections disclosed to our buyers when they're looking at homes that are predating, I think it's 1975, if I'm not mistaken, for the clay pipes, for cast iron, for galvanized pipes, because galvanized pipes is another problem. You're seeing those beautiful homes, South Tampa bungalows, they got some gorgeous homes, and if they didn't replace the galvanized pipe that's up underneath the flooring, now that's a lot easier to get to because it's up off the ground and there's a crawl space and they can get to it. But
Right.
That's another area of fun litigation.
John speaks my words is, if it's this easy to spot stucco that has been ignored, what else have they ignored? Well, here's common sense. The guy doesn't live here. He hasn't been to this house in over a year. He does have a caretaker check on it, but there's nobody walking around looking. I don't walk around my house and look for stucco cracks. Do you? No, but I can see it from my house. I can look at his. And it was obviously fixed at one point because the color doesn't match where he touched it up. Cool. All right, so as is contracts, You know, I'm not a fan. If it's my buyer and I want him to be able to walk, yes. But you know, what do you think? I don't know. You guys might know more than I do. What do you think it costs to get a plumber to do that scope inspection? $300 or $400? $200 or $300?
Yeah, it's about that. I've done them.
To save $40,000?
Yeah.
Move.
They were saying about everybody dying on your street to move, and I said, you're not a tree.
No, I've killed off everybody around me now. I'm getting new friends.
Halloween's coming. Woo!
Yeah. Answer live, done. Okay. All right. So small deposits, I don't care about a small initial deposit, but I'm talking about courage here. The courage to get a meaningful deposit after the end of the BS inspection period. So if I'm talking to my buyer, hey, look, let's put $1,000 down with the earnest money deposit. It's an as-is contract. I'm going to give you a 7-day inspection period. On day 8, I want you to make a meaningful deposit so the seller knows how serious we are. So, Kat, I'm going FHA. How do I talk to a buyer about putting a reasonable deposit down?
Well, FHA may have 3% financing that they're putting down, may have 5% that they're putting down. So in the additional, if it's as is, for the additional deposit, you can do it that way. You can put another 1,000. You could put 1,000 at the front. I like $1,000 per $100,000 home. So let's say it's a $250,000 house. Okay, they can put 1,000 at the beginning and then bring in another 1,500 at the additional deposit. Usually they have money. A very learned expert that I've learned under, Miss Deborah Haley, always taught me buyers have the money. Always ask.
Right. So I wrote down, you should know the buyer's cash position because you should have spoken to their loan officer. So if they're going FHA on a $200,000 house with 3.5% down, that's $7,000. So they better damn well have $7,000 right now because they're closing in 30 or 45 days. So if they got $7,000, let's get 5 of it. So we get 1,000 now, let's do $4,000 additional. And now we got a meaningful contract on day 8. Now the buyer can feel comfortable. And then I wrote something else down here. Blow it up early. If the buyer says, no, I'm not going to give you a big deposit after the end of my inspection period, does that send up? I'm going to get a flag for my office. A red flag. This is an orange flag. If you are the listing agent and you're going to take your asset off the market for a $1,000 deposit and a 7-day as-is inspection period, you're nuts. I would tell the buyer, no, you got to put $7,000 down for your loan. I want an additional $4,000 deposit on day 8 or pound salt. You're not getting my listing.
Yeah, or 1.5% of the purchase price. Or 1.5% of the purchase price for a good faith deposit.
Well, but my goal is 10%. So let's get a little braver here.
Right.
We're doing a conventional loan with 20% down. I want 10. I'll take your $1,000 initial, but on day 8, I want the balance of 10%. Why? You're not getting any interest on your bank anyway. So put it up and make my seller feel comfortable. Guys, 30% of our contracts are canceling. What a waste of your time and energy. Get a little bit of courage and stand up. So blow it up early. If I'm the buyer's agent, I'm going to tell my buyer that I really want up to a 10% deposit to make the seller feel comfortable and make them want to accept your offer. And I know you guys have all told me that you've had your offers beat out other offers because you did these things. In a competitive market like this, these are the tips and tricks we were talking about. I wrote down home inspection before listing at a minimum, right? If you're taking a listing on a house, here, I helped my mom with something the other day, one of my neighbors on Capriccio. Beautiful house. This guy's a pilot. She's a flight attendant. It is immaculate. I haven't seen any house as clean as this one. I mean, their garage, you could, if it was hot enough, you could cook an egg on the floor and it'd be fine to eat. It was beautiful. It was all, what do you call it? That paint they put on the floor, epoxy garage door. air-conditioned garage, room for 6 cars. Really, really nice. And we had a whole strategy to go up on the price and run it up the flagpole and see salutes and stuff. But as an aside, they're not sure they're going to move. They're thinking about moving to Boise, Idaho. Do you have any idea what the market's like in Boise, Idaho? What's up, baby?
else. My husband got stationed up there. I know a lot about Boise, and there's a lot of beautiful farmland. It's college town.
The house he's looking at is $478,000. It's 2,000 square feet, and it's on a 40-foot lot with no yard. $230 a foot for an off-water, and we're going to try to get $280 a foot for his waterfront house with a dock and a pool. So Boise's price range has gone up because all the Californians. Oh gosh. Hey, Joe, just 1 second. We're at the end. My dock contractor's here. My dock is collapsing as we speak. Yeah, anyway, so he's got to decide where he's going with that. But anyway, I told him, I said, you're gonna get a home inspection. Billy, tell Joe I'll be right there. You're gonna get a home inspection. We're gonna fix everything. And here's what you're gonna do. Your stove and your dishwasher have not been updated. We're gonna give the buyer an allowance for that because we're gonna charge a lot of money for your house. I'm gonna keep the neighborhood comps high, but you're gonna credit the buyer at closing so they can pick out their own range and their own dishwasher. And then there was something else he was gonna do. But that's the kind of stuff we're gonna keep talking about. So, all right, I gotta run. Kathleen, thank you for your attention today.
Yeah, it was fun.
And I got my guy to go. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.